everyone. Welcome back to Beat the Big Guys. I'm your host, Sandy Rosenthal, and I'm really excited about my guest who's with us today from the great state of Missouri, to be a little more specific, south of St. Louis. Her name is Loretta Boesing. Hello, Loretta.
Hey, Sandy. Thank you so much for having me today.
You're welcome. Did I pronounce your name properly?
Yes.
Yay. Okay, we're off to a good start. It's going to be a great day. Thank you so much for joining me. I am really excited about the work that you've been doing. I've been following you for months on your work. So that's another reason that I'm really excited to finally meet you in person, even if it is virtual on a Zoom.
Thank you. It's definitely a lot of work. I appreciate all that you do and all the impact that you have and helping advocates like me, just to be more successful.
You are so very welcome. So I am going to go ahead and just take a couple of seconds to tell my listeners today, you the listeners, just a little bit about Loretta, and then I'll let her take over. She's the expert. Okay. Loretta Boesing is a patient advocate and founder of Unite for Safe Medications. Her desire to save lives and enhance patient outcomes by ensuring that safety, quality, and access to pharmaceutical care comes from her desire to protect the gift of life that lives on through her son, a transplant survivor. It's just beautiful. So I am so grateful that you're joining us today, and I don't want to keep our listeners waiting any longer. I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic over to you.
Thank you. Yes. So my son is a transplant survivor, and life had changed so quickly at the time of his transplant. So he got the flu. 2-year-olds, they get the flu. Most recover without any issues. But for my son, within a day's time, I would notice that his skin color just didn't look right. It looked pale. So took him to the doctor. They're like, yeah, he does look a little, his color is off. At that time, he was still talking and walking. I wasn't really concerned a whole lot. I still thought he just needed some help, maybe a medication, get home and we'd be okay. But they said, go ahead and bring him to the hospital. So I brought him to the hospital closer to the city in St. Louis. And they're like, Loretta, his kidneys are failing. His liver is failing. And I'm just like, what? I still didn't think, though, that anything would be too wrong. But then they'd said that we were going to be transferred to a major children's hospital. And that's when it hit me. Wow, he's really sick. And they had transferred us to a major hospital. Just, I would say within 3 to 4 days, we were being told he would need to be put on the transplant list. And they said, Loretta, your child's life, will rely on medications every 12 hours. And standing outside the ICU room, I just remember the nurse holding the tablet. She's like, we need to put him on the transplant list. To get him listed, you have to agree. And I'm like, please, just whatever we have to do to save my son. And she's like, they did tell you he's going to be put on a ventilator, right? And I'm like, no, they didn't. I didn't know that he was really that bad. It was just, his life was fading so quickly. It was within 24 hours of being listed that he would get his gift of life. That night, there was actually 3 livers that the transplant team had to choose from. So I knew in that moment what a gift of life we had received. And I vowed that very day that never again do I ever want to be in that situation. And I would do all I could to protect it. So
I'm going to ask you to stop 1 second. The dog is, what a moment that the dog picked to bark. I'm going to pause for 1 second, okay?
So I remember the nurse standing, outside the ICU room as I watched her. I remember her saying, they told you that your son's going to be on a ventilator, right? And I'm like, no, I didn't think that my son's life could fade that quickly, that he would need a ventilator. And after that, after he's put on the ventilator, I would say it was maybe within a day that he was transplanted and that he would get his gift of life. They actually found 3 children that had donated their livers that would be available for my son for the doctors to choose from. And at that moment, I just knew, what a gift of life we had been given, what a miracle my own son was. And my heart had went out to those other families and those other mothers and parents. And I just told myself that I would never risk that gift of life, that I would embrace it and just cherish it and honor it. And after that, we knew that my son would be on medications every 12 hours. And of course, that his life will forever rely on medications, and not just medications, but pharmacy access, safe pharmacy access. So what had happened is back in not long after he was transplanted, this is what really it was really where my advocacy would have started if I wouldn't have. It would have started, but we weren't forced to mail order pharmacy back then. And I just really thought that there's no way that certain issues would not be unregulated. So the issue was, I tried mail order pharmacy not about a month and a half after we were discharged, and they would deliver his medication on a 102-degree day without any protection. And I would fill the bottle, and that bottle was so hot. And my mother's instinct, it was yelling at me like, something's not right here. But you just have so much faith in the systems that are meant to protect us, that you just think, surely no one would do this if it wasn't safe. There's no way they would just allow this to happen to a child. And I found out that I was wrong whenever I started questioning, and this was later on, I would start questioning and find out that it's not regulated. But my son at that time, and this was liquid oral transplant medications that I gave him, a week and a half to 2 weeks later, he was back in the hospital again. The life that we just fought so hard for. My son, I had just watched him, he's still learning how to walk. He's still learning his first words. He had to relearn all of that all over again. And for an hour and a half to 2 hours on this visit, after they delivered his meds unsafely, after they had delivered his medications in only a bag on a hot day, I had to watch the nurses hold down my son for almost 2 hours trying to administer harsher chemo medication. I had to put in a PICC line. And during that time, I'm just thinking, the hot meds, this was from the hot like, I know it was from the hot medications. And I just, at that moment, I said, okay, well, I'll just never use mail order pharmacy again unless I can absolutely prove that this is safe. And fast forward to 2018, we were forced to mail order pharmacy like many other, patients today with severe chronic conditions. They're forced to mail order pharmacy. They don't know that it's not regulated by the FDA. When I would call the FDA would say, yeah, I get calls like this all the time. And I had just called again this summer. So I called back in 2018, 2019. I called again this summer. I was told the exact same thing from the FDA representative. We get this all the time. And this was supposed to be on the advocate side with the FDA. And they're like, yeah, it happens, but it's your state board of pharmacy that's supposed to regulate this issue. So then I make a complaint to the state board of pharmacy, and I said, this has happened to my son. What are you going to do? Basically, there was no repercussions there. At one point, the investigator told me, Loretta, you're going to receive special treatment now. And I thought, I was kind of upset by that, because I'm thinking I shouldn't take special treatment to get safe treatment, ethical treatment. And I also know something about special treatment is it's not forever. It's not. My husband switched employers, new health plan. They're forcing to mail order pharmacy again. CVS, same mail order pharmacy. And I would call again with the pharmacist on the line over the summer. I had the pharmacist to call the drug manufacturer and just to tell her what temperatures that medication is tested and proven safe up to. No changes, still the same as it was back in 2018. There's nothing showing that that medication is safe beyond 86 degrees. But during the summer, they will not protect it from the trucks and mailboxes that reach 120 to 170 degrees. So I find out about this and I'm thinking, okay, this is such a common sense issue. Honestly, I would not think 5 years later that I would still be fighting for this. So I would contact U.S. Department of Labor. U.S. Department of Labor says, look, you need to start Twitter. You need to maybe start a Facebook group, make a petition. He said, because although it's unethical.
Suggested this? Who suggested?
U.S. Department of Labor, someone at the U.S. Department of Labor. Yeah, it's interesting because I filed a complaint with the Department of Insurance. So the Department of Insurance would get me to the U.S. Department of Labor because this is a large employer sponsored plan. And by one of the wealthiest people in our nation. And I was just shocked the U.S. Department of Labor is admitting it's not right, but we're not going to do anything about it because it's not illegal. Until it's illegal, there's nothing, no protection basically for us. So I went ahead from there, started the Twitter, and that's where my advocacy took off. I did not know how I would be perceived or accepted by pharmacists. I mean, here I am with pharmacists. I'm pointing out this huge issue that's gone unregulated for a long time. To my surprise, the pharmacist actually took me in. They not only embraced it, they said they have brought this to state boards of pharmacy for years and it's not getting any type of notice, like they're just getting brushed off. The state boards of pharmacy will not take them seriously. And they taught me why. And if you look at our state board of pharmacy here in Missouri, you have Express Scripts, you have Optum Rx, you have CVS Caremark. My consumer advocate, who is supposed to be there for patients, is from AARP. AARP gets a lot of royalties from United Healthcare, who has Optum Rx and also does the same unsafe shipping of medication. So it's really easy to see how we got here today. Even boards of pharmacy members will say, yes, I had this issue. And still, yeah, even though board members know it's a problem, they can't get it fixed because there's too much conflicts of interest. So I just keep building my support team through social media, and it's really been helpful. And so many other advocates have also taught me about pharmacy issues. So now the independent pharmacist also taught me about pharmacy closures. The chain pharmacist taught me about understaffing issues. So although I started a petition on change.org for the U.S. Department of Labor's suggestion, I did start that petition. It has 220,000 supporters to stop the forcing of mail order pharmacy. Patients also taught me about delays, and I learned a lot there from them. But it's just, you just take everything together. It's just amazing how much I've learned, and just continue to have so much support from pharmacists. Honestly, without the pharmacists, there's no way that I could do what I do.
Thank goodness for the pharmacist. Loretta, I do understand that you're against this unregulated condition we have where there's no regulation over mail order prescriptions, and then that the patient has no choice. Okay, but who is it? And I understand that, and yeah, I'm all for it. But how are you going to make that happen? What's the plan? What's your roadmap?
Yeah, so my plan is to continue to work with both state boards of pharmacy, because they are supposed to, do their jobs and protect us. So my plan is to continue to work with them, but it cannot just be me. Currently, I am prioritizing taking this issue to the boards of pharmacy where I can get at least one other patient there to sit beside me and care enough about these issues, or, and to share their concerns with them. So recently I went to Arizona with a patient who had received melted capsules for her heart condition. These capsules are sent to her in the desert of Arizona. So she decided, you know what, to make this safer, I'm going to ship it to the local CVS pharmacy because that'll keep it cool. No.
Oh, no.
These specialty pharmacies, no. That's just a way for them to make you feel safe, but it's not really any safer. Because when I asked CVS, I said, so how are you going to ship it to my door? The same way. They're going to ship it the same way in the hot UPS trucks that are not temperature controlled. And even with the new petitioning of UPS, the changes UPS is going to make, the back of those trucks are still going to be hot. Your mailboxes are still going to be hot, of course. But even in transit to these pharmacies, there's no regulation on temperature control, or if there is, they're just completely ignoring it and no one's doing anything. So my goal is to try to get the patients to care enough to show up and realize that they have a seat at the table and their voice can save the lives of patients like my son and patients like Pat, the patient who spoke in Arizona at the Board of Pharmacy meeting. So that's one way. The next way will be to approach the FDA through a petition and hopefully get the FDA.
FCA. Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. FDA.
FDA.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I really do feel like the FDA has a responsibility to do more on this issue. The FDA knows that CVS is not just CVS, but all pharmacies that are getting medications from wholesalers most of them are not being shipped safely. So at the Oklahoma Board of Pharmacy meeting, there was a pharmacist that it was a lobbyist there. CVS lobbyist stood up and spoke against the temperature regulation, claiming that we get hot meds from the manufacturers and wholesalers. So what good is it to tell the pharmacist, but you can't ship them out the same way? She actually said that in front of the entire Board of Pharmacy. And I just think that, the FDA, that the drug manufacturers for sure fall under the FDA. The FDA should do more to ensure that medications are protected throughout the supply chain. So that
the key master is the State Board of Pharmacists or the FDA? Yeah,
the State Board of Pharmacy, I believe, is where, it is right now. That's who's supposed to be regulating it. But the problem is throughout the supply chain is not just the mail order pharmacies. So state boards regulate mail order pharmacies. The FDA is supposed to be doing a much better job at regulating those manufacturers and wholesalers. So I feel like that's two ways. Additionally, with legislators, we have to get the legislators to, one, stop the forcing to mail order pharmacy, because the temperatures are just one of many issues with mail order pharmacy. The whole reason why we're forced to this has nothing to do with it being safe. It has a whole lot to do with drug price distortion that can be done as they force it in mail order pharmacies. They reimburse themselves over 10 times what they did our local pharmacy when we were forced. So that is what this is about. There's just a lot more that legislators need to do. So, just a couple days ago, I spoke to my legislator here in Missouri, and I said, what can I do? And he said, we're going to have a hearing on some PBM legislation, and I think it would be great to come speak. So, getting involved with your representatives that you see are working on these issues in your state, that's also so critical. It's another important part. And a lot of times patients are left out. I mean, they're not invited to the table. I don't wait for an invite. I'm coming, I can't, patients need to use their voices, because something that happened last week with chain pharmacists was they were protesting. All of those pharmacists, every single one came with their face hidden. because they couldn't show their face due to fear of retaliation. We have a lot of supportive pharmacists that tell us about issues, but none of them can speak openly because they're afraid of retaliation
Right.
from their companies or the board members. But this is why the patient voice is so important. So building up those patients.
Well said. And too often in this country, it left up to the either the victims or in this case the patients to have to make changes. But they can change things. And even we could sit around and go, it's a shame, it shouldn't be that way, but unfortunately it is that way. And to think about one of the good things that you have going for you is that even if, like, for example, I'm not on a medication right now, but I could be tomorrow. You know, I mean, the idea that I might have to take a medication that can't get heated is not far-fetched at all, you know, for anyone. I mean, life can change just like for your baby. It can change in one day. So it should be, I would imagine that it hasn't been extraordinarily difficult to get people to sign your manifesto or to sign your petition and people to agree, yeah, you know, that shouldn't be that way. Has that been the case pretty much?
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, I mean, there's a lot of people whose lives do rely on medication, or if it's not them, you know, it's their mom, it's their child, it's someone that they love and care about that are forced to these pharmacies that don't properly store medications and risk lives. So, yeah, that's been really helpful that it is so relatable to the general public. And I also use that as I outreach, is that, you know, life can change overnight, just like it did for me.
That's for sure. Now, the system, and it is the way it is for a reason. People are making money. The status quo is keeping certain people their pockets lined, you know, very comfortably. So, and that's going to be disrupted if there's change. And the system expects people, you know, the populace to just go, oh, okay, there's nothing we can do about it. And it blows their minds when people like you know, say, no, I'm not putting up with this. No. And it blows their minds. And they think first they ignore you, but you don't go away. And then they make fun of you or try to intimidate you, and you fight and you win, and you will. So the big guys are definitely beatable. It's interesting you pointed out that you were being told, well, you're asking for special treatment, and in my mind, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, you never requested special treatment. You don't want to be treated differently than everybody else.
Oh, thank you. Yes, you're right. That I don't want to be treated differently. I honestly, we were treated differently. And I feel like because the knowledge that I have in the healthcare industry, I'm still being treated differently today because I was able just recently, after being forced to CVS and finding out again that they would do nothing to protect my son's life-saving medications, and being in that same spot as I was 4 years ago, I knew how to navigate around the system and to be able to get my son different health insurance that would allow for choice of pharmacy, but a lot of patients don't know how to do that. And then what happens to the people that are too sick, that don't have the time, that, you know, and I hear that a lot as I try to ask for people to just show up at the boards of pharmacy. Is like, I would love to go, Loretta, but I'm just too sick. And that actually just happened recently. I had a patient, Tennessee Board of Pharmacy, we were supposed to go next week and speak. And the one patient that I had that was brave enough to go with me is not doing well right now. And I mean, I don't know what's going to happen now. I just wish people would care enough just to show up, because showing up, you know, it didn't take but a couple of bad guys to get this to the state it is. And they're lobbyists, and they're these members that are sitting in these boards of pharmacy as gatekeepers to safety. And you know, it shouldn't be that way. And I guarantee if we could get 10 people at a board of pharmacy meeting, we get their attention and we get change, and together we could keep building that momentum. That's where change is really going to happen, and where we will take them down, because it doesn't take a lot.
And you're right, it doesn't take that many people. I mean, because those 10 people could be each representing 1,000 people. Okay, so you're right. People get the idea, oh, you have to have 500,000 people. No, you don't. The power of a small group is infinite. A power of a small, dedicated, passionate group that's not doing it for money. That
Right.
a lobbyist is only doing it for a paycheck. So you mentioned that one of the excuses, that's what I'm calling them, excuses for not doing something about the medication being sent out in over 100-degree heat, is understaffing. Oh, we're understaffed. We can't do that. We're understaffed. The big guys will say anything to avoid the issue, and use any excuse under the sun to avoid the issue. And it's up to you out there who are fighting the big guys to not let them do it. And the first thing is to recognize what they're doing. Oh, they're trying to change the subject. They're trying to avoid the issue. They're trying to avoid a subject that's painful for them to talk about, uncomfortable for them to talk about. So they'll throw anything at you. Just don't let them, but be nice, but be nice about it. If you lose your temper, and believe me, I've lost my temper more times than I care to mention. But if just keep your smile on your face and just don't allow them to change the subject. Now back to you on that, and you can probably think of other ways that they came up with excuses, like the understaffing.
Yes, and here actually the number one that we'll also get with this too is that, oh, well, they'll use that excuse of, well, the manufacturers send it that way to us. So, sorry that it's the desert in Arizona or the desert in California. To you, because that's how it does. It's like, well, they're doing it wrong. It's like it's almost like how you would redirect a toddler. That's kind of what they try to do to us. Like, you don't know how bad the issue is, but if they can do it, then oh well, so
Don't say anything.
yeah, so that's one. They'll also say, well, the FDA and USP hasn't determined that it needs to be regulated any differently. So a lot of people don't know who USP is. It's United States Pharmacopoeia. United States Pharmacopoeia, they actually help write regulations for the FDA to follow. So the other thing that I do is never take a word they say as truth, because 9 out of 10 times I found it's not. So I reach out to USP and I'm asking, so please tell me, do you believe this is right and what they're doing? And USP had wrote back, no, they're not supposed to exceed the temperatures as written on the medication bottle or the pamphlet that comes with your medications. Well, obviously they're not following that. So everything that they say, you just research it and you find out the truth yourself.
And it often, and in this case, it's as simple as looking at the packaging that the medicine came in, and that's another thing the big guys don't expect you to do. They don't expect you to read.
No, no.
I'm not kidding. It happened to me once when I was fighting the big guys, in my case, the Army Corps of Engineers, and a former member of the Corps, after he'd heard me talk about an issue, said, how did you find out about that? I said, I can read. I can read. They don't expect that.
And isn't it so interesting how the regulators somehow cannot do the same? So I've had Board of Pharmacy members ask me, why are you referring to this regulation or guideline with USP instead of this one? Why don't you do the work? Why am I, as a patient, being asked that when you should do the work? You should be fine.
Thank you for recognizing that. Like, why am I being asked this question? I was once on a show. I don't like talking about myself, but real quick. I was put on a new show called The Hot Seat. And if I could rewind the clock, I would have gone back and go, why am I a citizen of this flooding in the hot seat? Wait a minute, this is backward. But I was young and inexperienced, or naive and inexperienced. I wasn't young. I can't blame that. Also, you mentioned, Loretta, that in the beginning, you were concerned or thought about, how will I be perceived? Okay, and you were this is natural. How being concerned about how you will be perceived. And if we could talk about that just a little more, because it's something everyone thinks about, before they make the decision, I am going to stand up and say no, to wonder, well, how will I be perceived by, X, Y, these people and these people and these people. And my response to that is, it's nothing personal.
Yes, thank you. You
Not
get it. And right now, what I realize is I gave way too much thought to that moment. I gave way too much thought. When you know that what you're standing up for in your heart is right and it will save lives, don't worry about who's not on your side.
don't worry. And you go on.
I also just, I'm not perfect, and I'm not I would think about every reason as far as other things. I don't have much time. I'm not the best writer. I'm not the best speaker. I would just be so negative in my mind. And at the end of the day, none of that really matters to make change. Get out there, use your voice for what's right, and don't let anyone at all belittle you or make you feel like you can't do it. And, there's some people that have large platforms that has said, Loretta, I'm going to help you. You know what? 9 out of 10 times they don't pull through. There's a small handful that does because they mean what they say and they say what they mean, but don't let that discourage you or stop you either. You just keep going and you build your own platform and you keep connecting with people that are passionate, and advocates of all different types have, the real advocates, they're not about them, but about the cause.
Not about the cause. And then when the people that want to keep the status quo start saying things like, I don't know if it's happened to you, but if someone says, oh, somebody like a pharmacist somewhere or a pharmaceutical company says, well, that Loretta Boesing, she must have too much time on her hands, and to try to say something negative about you. It's not about you. It's about what you're saying. They don't like what you're saying. And so rather than discuss the issue, which I'm comfortable discussing, they go after Loretta.
Yes. Yes. So that's nope. You let that go, because here's the thing. They will absolutely do that because they're not used to, especially in this realm of pharmacy, because the pharmacists have been silenced for years. They're not used to people standing up. When I first started, independent pharmacists showed on our television screens as shadowed figures because they were trying to tell us that, for example, the cost of drugs would be lower if you would pay cash. There were gag clauses and insurance contracts that kept them from telling patients that. So these pharmacists, they're afraid of retaliation. So it's just, there's this huge demand in the pharmacy industry to just continue to keep the status quo, and nobody says anything to rock the boat if anybody says something off. And that goes with the colleges that get a lot of money from Walgreens, CVS, Express Scripts, all the large pharmacy associations get a lot of money from either drug manufacturers, these pharmacies. It's very interesting and at the same time scary to see. But yeah, you cannot let any of that keep you silent and from saying the truth yourself. If they want to be silent, let them. I refuse.
And I would even go, the only thing I would add is, I think criticism is a good sign. It means you're right. Otherwise, why would they waste their time saying anything about you? People don't wake up every morning and go, what negative thing can I say about Loretta today? It isn't about Loretta.
No, it's
about out there that see you wrong and you need to fix it. But remember, just keep that in mind. It's not about Loretta.
No. And even the anger, and that's one thing I did start finally. I want to start doing more podcasts and really showing who I am more, and that this comes from a place of love and care for other people and for other patients and protection. This doesn't come from, I want every corporation to fail, or I want, these associations and the boards of pharmacy and the people that are supposed to protect us to fail. No, I just want them to do better. And I know that if we can get the people to care enough, that we can ensure that they're doing better by holding them accountable. They do need accountability. They've not had any on these issues at all.
Is there
Ever.
anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners? We're about run out of time.
Okay, so, when it comes to beating the bad guys, I just say you get up every day and you do your best. Don't expect perfection again. You just don't let people put you in a corner, and don't think for a second that the little that you have, the little time, your voice isn't enough to create big change. We do not have a lot, as a family where we live, in a small town. My degree's in social work, we're just passionate about people, though, and that's what you need to really create change, because that's really what's lacking with a lot of the boards of pharmacy and like some of the chain pharmacies. It's just, our hearts, I do believe, at the end of the day, is what's going to drive us to create the change that we need. And just just do your best and just keep connecting with people that will support you, that believe in you, and will do everything they can to make sure that you don't fail.
Very, very wise words. If anybody wanting to join your cause, what do you suggest they do?
So you can go to uniteforsafemeds.com. And this year we did something new where we made a page that's join to become a member. It doesn't cost anything, but because we're advocating for a few different pharmacy issues, you can choose the ones that touch your heart and that you want to see, improved and changes on in the future for your child, for your life, for your loved ones. So join to become a member. And then when we do have updates, something in your state coming up, or we need your voice, you would be surprised what just like a little sit down with your representative is showing up at your board of pharmacy. Boards of pharmacy, by the way, when I attend, I'm usually the only patient. Not even the patient advocates are showing up. All that you see there are the lobbyists from these corporations. So if you want pharmacy to get better, we have to start showing up at those board of pharmacy meetings.
Well, I'm going to sign up. If I haven't already, I probably have already, but I'll double check and make sure. So thank you so much for joining me, Loretta. And I've learned a lot. I knew a bit, but I learned a lot more. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate you and all the support.
No problem. And the listeners, thank you for joining us today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast on all of your favorite platforms. And remember, no matter who you are, even Loretta, you too can beat the big guys. Okay, stay with me.